And so we have ambitious goals to talk about impact of research on innovation and innovation on education process. We heard a lot in plenary session on this topic, and I hope having such excellent scholars, colleagues here. The beauty of the combination is that we represent all different disciplines. I am economist, Francesco is educator, yeah, pedagogy, and Branislav is physicist, and Vladimir is political scientist. Besides that, he has also...
And mechanical engineering.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay, let's start with, we have the... Okay. Somehow, oh, this one, okay, good, I will, no. Okay, you see the, always asking the class, the youngest student, to if I have any problems. Okay, no, good, coming, okay, good. So these are the panelists. I am Zbigniew Bochniarz from Kozminski University. I am also affiliated with the Evans School of Public Policy and Governance at the University of Washington in Seattle since 2007. And then we have here Francesco Arcidiacono. From Switzerland, from University of Teacher Education, from Biel, and Branislav Jelenković, professor of Institute of Physics in Belgrade, from Serbian Academy of Art and Academy of Science and Arts. This is my bias, being from World Academy of Art and Science, you know, to put different order. And then we have Vladimir Popović, Professor, State Secretary, Ministry of Education, and Science and Technology Development of Serbia. So we have a great combination, and we will start our session. I put my timer to really keep my time first, to give a good example, to avoid exceeding 10 minutes. Okay, good. So I would like to share some of my comments as a practitioner, because I teach, this is the 52nd year of my academic activities. And let me make these three basic statements. So there is no good education without new knowledge. And the knowledge comes from research, either from basic research or from applied research. And this is particularly the case of graduate education, the master and PhD level. I agree with Ivanka Popović this morning that we should give the basic fundamentals to the bachelor degree. However, I see many good examples when we are getting, even at that level, bachelor students involved in the research. And then, for instance, at the University of Washington, we are doing type of, sponsored by Boeing, by the way, competition, to have project with 3 different disciplines, focusing on current problems. So boosting the imagination and encouraging to work together. So since advances of digital transformation, we're talking about Industrial Revolution 4.0, the creation of knowledge has been so much accelerated that we got that type of cognitive gap, you know, we cannot absorb as much as we are getting. So the innovation should help us to pick up, absorb the most important knowledge to education process, starting from ICT technologies through artificial intelligence and augmented virtual reality to symbiotic autonomous system. I would like to talk briefly. I mean, my colleague Rodolfo was talking today a bit. There is a feedback also from education we need to, on the research, we need to keep, you know, in mind that the quality of education, quality of innovation, and the quantity depends on how we teach. So this is why I am a big fan, and those who used to work with me, of person-centered education in building of learning community. Okay. So I expect that we'll have excellent panel and excellent discussion, even if we are from different disciplines, to look for some conclusions which will help us to apply smoothly the best results of the research and inspire our students with new knowledge. Preparing myself for this session, I was inspired by two events. One happened on October 14, when the Royal Academy of Science Nobel Committee announced the award in economics. First time received young, relatively young economists, and also in the area of experimental research on focusing on elevating global poverty. Abhijit Banerjee, Esther from India originally, Esther from Daflo from France, both from MIT, and Michael Kramer from Harvard. What was interesting that this is an innovative example of applied research. They use transdisciplinary evaluation methods, including medical sciences, pharmacology, and they found a most effective way to enhance human capital to fight with poverty. What was very interesting in the statement of the Nobel Committee, that during the application of 20 years of this method, they helped about 400 million people. So what is interesting, and this is what we discussed today about all these barriers, obstacles, those guys were brave enough to cross transdisciplinary discipline. They capitalized on several schools of economics: institutional, behavioral, contract economics, including neoclassical economics. So, and then they serve now in academia and teaching next generation. So this is a big hope. And then the second event happened in my hometown, Lublin, eastern part of Poland, where on October 23rd, where prominent French biophysicist, biochemist, and biologist Pierre Joliot received honorary doctorate from Maria Curie Skłodowska. By the way, he is the grandson of Maria Curie Skłodowska. He stated in his acceptance speech that the race for higher competitiveness and profitability in short terms, which is the base for contemporary society, leads to serious limiting of researchers' creativity and their innovativeness. Such policy, which is responsive for serious, profitability, paradoxically is counterproductive to its goal, to the mission of academia, I could add. He also emphasized that research is a form of artistic activity, which relies on creativity combined with high level of technical proficiency, competency. And finally, he said, the effective research system based on sustainable interactive between two types of research, basic and applied, will grant, is very critical and depends to large extent to design such evaluation process that will grant sufficient space for young researchers with the freedom and creativity. So again, the research comes to education, how we shape in education process new researchers, whether they are open-minded, they're risk-takers, and so on. Okay, so how to get access to new knowledge? You know, you are teaching particular graduate courses. Well, first of all, you need to mobilize your own faculty to do research and share the research and get students involved in the research, particularly at the master and PhD level. In fact, you know, we in the US, the most research is done by our master and PhD students. Encourage faculty members and students to take advantage for MOOCs. I guess it was mentioned many times, I don't need to explain this. I mean, particularly from the top university. I mean, Stanford started 2012 with Coursera, Harvard with edX, and other, MIT with OpenCourseWare. We have now over 700 universities offering over 10,000 courses. I didn't check all 10,000, but I am sure that those from the top universities are worthy to learn. And then having the access to them, you can skip repeating these texts and focus what comes out from your own research. Because this is the best inspiration for students when they are coming fresh results from your research. And then applying artificial intelligence to faculty and students, self-learning, self-examination, and teamwork. You can do a lot of with AI in terms of time scheduling and so on and so on. And finally, emerging innovation, symbiotic education with digital twin. This is something what inspired me at the conference organized by Rodolfo Florini in Milano. These two professors, Canadian Kintzner and Italian Serracco, presented the model. Okay, time to finish, okay. Good, so let me summarize this. To help to cope with the doubling knowledge, very often now, every 20, 30 years, we expect that within 10 years, maybe they will be doubling within 1 year or 18 months. So we could use symbiotic digital twin. Complementary digital relations between individuals and digital twins. You know what is digital twin? We have already applications for machines, but also we don't know how look our digital twins possessed by intelligence agencies, marketing agencies. We already have digital twins. We need to be aware. But if we would be able to apply in education, we can speed up the process to focus on personalized needs instead of going through all this. So this is a great opportunity and challenges, including correcting unethical behavior. I mean, it could be from intelligence company, already practicing digital twin. And barriers and threats. Yeah, I mean, it's difficult to find faculty teaching, doing research. We need to find good incentives. We need to also build confidence in our partners, private companies, public companies, and in which we want to do research and help them. And then we need to be aware. I heard not enough, I believe, to mention at the end. We are facing a growing wave of nationalism, xenophobia, and intolerance. And then leads to the changes in national curricular reforms in some countries. Unfortunately, it's happening to my country when you see in the recommended framework curricula for the first, third grade that the main goal of education is teaching patriotism. And for the classes from the 4 to 6, the main goal is to increase national identity. What type of citizens we will educate? A lot of history, a lot of old stuff, and instead of openness. So this way, I see that this type of changes in the curricula, I am sure that the politics and ideology interferes with the curricula in many countries, but it helps just to reproduce own conservative electorate, particularly in the case of Poland in rural areas. Thanks God we have dynamic growth of private and non-public schools which follow the universal human values, you know, in their curricula with person-centered approaches. So anyway, what does it lead? We are going to have in public school people less educated who does not know who was Leonardo da Vinci or Napoleon or don't know anything about French Revolution. And then we will have the elite educated in the private non-public school. So these are the serious problems I would like to share with you, and then we will looking how we can avoid this. So this is enough on my side, and then I would like to ask the next speaker, which is Francesco. Yes, please take the floor.
Thank you.
And then we set 10 minutes for each of us to have about 25, 30 minutes for the discussion questions, okay? Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So waiting for the technology. Okay. So just to introduce myself, I'm Francesco Arcidiacono. As Zbigniew said, we are a very heterogeneous panel, but this is for me a source of inspiration. In fact, I will do some exercise that is quite strange, or let's say different from what I'm doing normally, because I'm an educational psychologist working at University of Teacher Education, and usually I attend conferences in which we belong to the same background, so we zoom in very specific topics. And I take this occasion, as we are coming from different fields, to zoom out and to make a kind of reflection also on what we are doing. So my presentation should seem quite different or exotic, but is a journey, and I would like to take you with me in this journey. So just to precise, the institution in which I'm working is an institution that is devoted to train future teachers at different levels. So we have bachelor and master programs for primary, secondary, and special needs education teachers, but we offer also lifelong learning for in-service teachers. So finally, we accompany teachers during their career. And another specific aspect of my institution is that we are, in Switzerland we have 26 cantons, and we are covering 3 of them: Bern for the French-speaking part, Jura and Neuchâtel. So the name of our institution, BEJUNE, is related to this 3 cantonal unity. And this is also quite interesting because we are at the border between French-speaking part of Switzerland and German-speaking part of Switzerland, and within our institution there are different cultures also according to this. So from my educational perspective, this is also very, very interesting. So as I said, my idea is to talk about this singular experience, singular not because it's special, there is nothing special, but it's specific. But however, although it is specific, there are many points that represent the actual reality of universities of teacher education in our country, in Switzerland. And we were, with colleagues, we were thinking about, because the title is Impact of Research, okay? As you said, and as the previous speaker during the plenary session said, it's difficult to say, to measure impacts or to understand whether we are really doing some impacts. But for us, the fact to reflect about this experience should be also some kind of way to have an impact on our organization and then to promote change for future education. So the first point is that we recognize a big gap between the community of researchers and the community of teachers. Two separate worlds, where a lot of researchers, they are working on education, they are saying teachers must do, teachers have to have this skill, this competence, and so on. But teachers are somehow the object of this. They are often, let's say, taken into account as participants, but not as main builder of a research. So we were thinking about it because if we would like to train the future teachers to be reflective teachers, probably they have to be taken into account in this journey about research. And then the second point was concerning, okay, if really we would like to implement these aspects, what we are offering now and what we could offer. So this idea to empower their professional capacities through research activities, through participating in research and not just to, let's say, be exposed to research and to understand what is research in theory. So this combination of research and theory was one of the preoccupations. And the third point was also related to the environment in which we are acting. Because, of course, I can train a teacher, a future teacher, and he or she could be really convinced about the prominence and the relevance of research, but then if in the school the principal, the other colleagues are not sharing this, probably this impact of research will decrease. So we were thinking about these 3 points, and in this reflection I prepared for this very short talk, I will focus on how we change our organization at 3 different levels: institutional, pedagogical, and scientific. So the first level, as I said, is the institutional one. As institution training future teachers, we have also to guarantee that we are taking into account not only the content that the teacher should teach. This is okay, well done by different faculties. Our students are students that already had MA, master degree in physics or biology or French and so on. Some of them, let's say a big part of them are also PhD, so they know, they have a good knowledge of the content of what they have to teach. But what you have to do is to work with them about pedagogy to teach. So to combine and to make for them clear the interrelation between teaching and learning. And what we have done is a process that was not linear. I tried to avoid some linear representation, but even this circle was not so easy. There were different steps in which we were going back, trying to understand, to define again, in which we were starting from our local community, instead to start from some general understanding. So with them, we were trying to understand how we can modify our institution, how we can rebuild an institution that should be at the service of the community, of the teacher community, of the school community, including as much as possible all the actors in DIN. And so we were working with them, then to test some hypotheses, to go back, to redefine, to try to evaluate. And one of the outcomes of this is what I said at the bottom. We create a new role in our institution at university, that is the role of teacher researchers. So we have now teachers that are working in schools, but they are also working at university, not just because they are very passionate and in their free time, but they are enrolled at university. So part of their work as teacher is to work at the university and to work with, let's say, regular researchers to implement projects and to contribute. So we try to shift from this position of a teacher like passive and only the subject, the participant of the research, to some conceptor of the research with the researcher. And the same with students. We try to involve them by giving a big part of the curriculum devoted to their activity in research. The second point was at the pedagogical level. Because, of course, if we would like to change the structure of our institution, we have to think also about the consequences. We cannot say, okay, it should be nice to have teachers, researchers to teach research if we don't change also our way to teach them. So in that sense, we were concerning about two main points. One is the contextual nature of teaching research or doing research with them. So in our way of presenting research, we don't want to convince them that their future is to become researchers. This is not at all the goal. The goal is to work with them in order to make them reflexive teachers that are capable to act in their environment, in their situation, in their context, to evaluate how learning is tied to its context. So how then they can transfer knowledge from a context to another. And the other point was to work on a new concept of evaluation, to take them in this idea that we need to define and measure what is meaningful for them and for the students. Because if we enroll them in this process that is new for them as for us, we have also to think how to assess it in a very formative way. So our previous model was not corresponding to the new reality. So in that sense, all the type of relations at the pedagogical level, content level, but also learning level were changing, and now we are very happy to work with them in order to establish this. And then, of course, there was a change also for us as, let's say, normal researchers or regular, sorry, not normal, regular researchers. I will conclude. To identify new topics that should be interesting and informative for us to continue in this journey, but also to improve this interest for research in education from the perspective of future teachers. And of course, in order to do this, we were identifying different topics that could belong to ways of thinking, of working, different tools that are available or not in the school. But main points concern digitalization in education. This has been one of the key topics in different talks, but also creativity, socio-materiality, so not only to produce tools, innovative tools, but to work with teachers on how to use, which is the frame, because I can create no matter how many apps or environment, but I have to work with them to create the frame in which this is exactly what they want and they understand how to use. And to conclude, let's go back to some topics about this conference. The first one is this idea to shift from the subject perspective to the student perspective, in our case, teacher's perspective. So to create skills for critical thinking, but also to understand that we are moving towards a new paradigm that is emphasizing contextual, local activities, and then starting from the local reality, trying through collaboration, through the sharing, to understand situations that are more general. Personally, in our institution, we have learned that this is very long process, that we need time, that is not something we can change in some years, but we are very optimistic because we think that there is always room for improvement, and I think that we need also to be open to other disciplines and other sectors, because this is, in our view, the future of education. So I stop here.
Merci vielmals.
Vielen Dank.
Good afternoon. I hope you don't mind it. I can. Okay. Thank you. Okay. First, I hope you don't mind it. I can speak from here and speak loudly. Okay. I hope you don't mind. Anyway, I think you will agree with me that what separates good universities from not so good universities, I think it's amount of innovation and the research that's involved in their education. I believe this is the truth because what innovation and the research is helping is to enhance the student learning, to develop the creativity thinking, so to say, and employability. And with these two things, I think this is what the education is about. I'm not an educator, I'm a researcher. So you probably know much more about education, about innovation, etc. in education, but you'll see my perspective, so to say, because all I've been doing for my life is a research. Institute of Physics, it's a very good research institute for the circumstances, not so close to here. But anyway, so how do I see innovations? What are the innovations? I see them as university, as faculties and departments, being able to quickly use whatever is available in terms of teaching technologies, tools, into the education, but also it is to the universities to respond as quickly as possible to the demands that are out there for new jobs, developing new fields, new courses, therefore creating a new program for students who will thinking where to come, what to choose for the education, can see at the end of the education what they can do to see their jobs. So this is what I see, how do I see innovation? That certainly has to be required for the university to be called innovative. And the research is so important for the education. Well, this, you know who is speaking, the researcher speaking. I do think that, first of all, I'm not talking about the heavy research institutions. That's beyond. I'm talking about some level of research which I think is so important. I'm talking about lab practices with the modern instruments. And that's, I think, it's really important. It's so much different if they can only listen to something in a class from observing these phenomena in the labs. If you have ability to put your hands into the system that can basically develop that phenomena. So I don't really believe very much into these open systems, which are popping everywhere, that you can basically learn just by listening. I'm talking about the natural sciences. This probably doesn't apply to humanity, etc. But for the natural sciences, I don't believe into the open. I think you ought to go through this little bit of practices to be. Okay, so what do we need in terms of the institution? to have a university which can call itself, yes, we are innovative, yes, we are research-based. Well, you need a university, you need a structure, you need a management which is aware of the importance of this. And then you have a structure that decision makers at the top of the university can project this down to the university, to the faculties and departments. Something that certainly doesn't apply in a world where faculties are completely independent, like it is the case somewhere. So you need to have this. You have to have resources, of course. And of course, and then you need the people. So it's so important. The hiring procedure at the universities for teachers, it is so important. I'm talking about this because we are aware that, is this working actually or it's not working anymore? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
No, not really.
I don't think it's working actually. Is it? It's green, but hello. Okay, okay. Yeah, this is what's called a hiring procedure. It has to be open. It has not, it shouldn't allow me to hire my student, regardless how good it is. Because you're employing somebody to help you, and not only that, that's not the case in many places in the region, but when you hire somebody, you have to hire him for the certain period, something that's very well used in other systems. The tenure track. Okay, you are here, but you have a couple of years to show that you deserve to be here. So this is what I think the universities ought to do in development, to be able to come to the level of decent university with the innovation and the research. Well, it turns out that being innovative and research-based, it's not really enough anymore in the today's world. What is happening nowadays, outside in the world, in the global world, requires the universities to have what I put down, education that's continuously evolving, to meet changes, rapid changes of the globalized world out there. There are so many new technologies. They're popping out. The main technology and then the branches of technology creating jobs. So there are completely new different jobs out there since maybe last couple of years ago, a decade ago. So this is putting a new pressure to the university, which wants to stay at the high level, to have innovation which is basically, and research which is dynamical. To meet these demands, we don't, it turns out that not so long time ago, the universities were educating people for life, not a lifetime, sorry, but until retirement. I mean, for the jobs were there, the certain jobs. Now, you don't know if the job that you're educating a student will exist in 10 or 20 years. So things are so much different now, and so much new pressure onto the universities. And this is definitely much more, this is definitely much more serious task. And it cannot be only to universities to develop this. It needs nation, it needs state to help them to come to that level, I think. And there are already countries which are recognizing this need of the transformation of the education to such a level that can meet the demands of the fast-changing technologies. And if you're interested, I think I found, well, my research. There's a very good example of national strategies. So the countries are making national strategies how to have a new education which can respond to the system. An example is, I think it's a good document to read, it's a Hungarian National Education Innovation System. It's a big document, but it's very, very useful, I think, whoever is making a national policy or strategy for the education. Also, you need to educate the educators. You need to educate the management of the educational institutions. So if you look what's available nowadays at the university in Europe, and I have an example of Austria and Finland, there are master degrees for educating the management. So this is all happening. And I think that this university should respond. And if I have just 2 minutes, I would like to come back to the situation here. I don't know what to say about the level of innovation and research and different faculties, because I just don't know. But what I think I know is that what's not good, what's slowing the system, is tremendous amount of autonomy that faculties have versus the university. And I thought this is really good. You ought to have the pyramid, really. And if the guys at the top of the pyramid don't function well, if the university is not functioning well, just replace them. But you have to have those people who are making the policy makers, and you have to know who is responsible. So this is, I think, and I think this applies more or less for the universities in the region. Second, I think, and this is probably something that concerns University of Belgrade, universities in Serbia. But if you noticed, this university is spread all over the town. And there's a faculty which is spread all over the town. We have faculties. We have, faculty of biology. They're really decent. I'm not a biologist, but I know the people. They're really good researchers. They don't have a room where to put a chair. Not to mention to open something new lab, new something, regardless of what ideas they have. How can you think about anything of improvement in the education, not to mention the responding to these fast demands, if they cannot have a chair to put anywhere? So what we need, and that is a campus. You need a campus, stupid. You need a campus with facilities, new model laboratories that will put together all these people from different branches, different science, because they ought to be together. The boundaries between the science are not there anymore. More and more they're going ways with is something in between the sciences we know of. Thank you.
Hvala lepa, Branislav. I have similar observation from Central East European universities. The faculty members just enjoy the freedom, academic freedom, which they were deprived under previous system. But unfortunately, in many cases, the responsibility after freedom didn't come yet. And this is the problem. I mean, this is, it's much more rigorous at American university. I spent 30 years. So, I mean, there's a good balance between academic freedom and responsibilities. Talking about responsibilities, I would like to move the floor to the fourth speaker, to Vladimir. Please share us, because I mean, you have both academic experience as well as administrative experience, you know, how you execute, you know, the responsibilities, and then link the research with education. Floor is yours.
Thank you very much. First of all, I want to introduce myself. I'm Vladimir Popović, full professor of University of Belgrade, Faculty of Mechanical Engineering, Automotive Engineering. And on the second place, I'm Secretary of State, responsible for science and technological development in Ministry of Education, Science and Technological Development. I was appointed at this currently position 3 years ago. As you know, this position is temporary position, sometimes very, very temporary. And because of that, I keep my position at the universities. Before this job, I haven't any experience in government. But this position is very high position in our government, some kind of vice minister. And because of that, I think that I have good view, good experience about our research community. Especially, we adopted 2 new laws on science and research and about National Science Foundation in the last year. First of all, I want to give you a few data about our position on some lists. First of all, on Global Competitiveness Index, Serbia is on 65th place among 140 countries. When we look quality of research institution, we are on the 59th place, and innovation capability 56th place. When we look our budget for R&D, it's about 0.92% of our GDP when we look all sources for R&D. Currently, we finance 12,000 researchers which are involved in current national R&D projects funded by our ministry. Overall number of researchers is about 16,000. It's about 4,300 researchers per million people in 2018. When we look our total world production of scientific works, we are on the 52nd place in 2019 on the list of all countries, I think 239 countries. And University of Belgrade is ranked on the Shanghai list on position between 400 and 500 place. Total number of scientific papers, according to Web of Science, is about 7,000 papers in the last year. Zbigniew mentioned two antagonistic tribes. Francesco mentioned two separate communities. When we look our communities, I see many tribes. Social humanities against other scientists, natural science, basic science against others, institutes, public research institutes against faculties and universities, and many others conflicts in community. When we try to change something, resistance is very hard. And sometimes I think that better is no change is the best solution for all. But of course it's not true. Also, somebody mentioned this morning that innovations are not possible without basic research. I completely agree with that opinion, and it's not possible to develop applied researchers without basic science. Also, you mentioned ways of thinking. It's very difficult task for all of us to work this job, to change ways of thinking. 2 minutes ago, I mentioned that we adopted new law on science and research in July this year, and Law on Science Fund adopted in December last year. Also, Science Fund established as an independent implementing agency, the similar way in the other developed countries and the EU. We use model of Horizon 2020 and Future Horizon Europe, and Science Fund started with first call. We plan to put 2 new calls until this year. One is connect to artificial intelligence. The second is connect to cooperation with our diaspora. Also, we completely change our financing model when we talk about research. In the past, we have so-called project financing, and in the future, even in the next year, we will have a combined model of project and institutional financing. I want to give you some data about our higher education system. We have 17 accredited universities in Serbia, out of which 7 are public. We have about 250,000 students at all universities, and 125 faculties which are accredited as separate institution. It is very important for us. This year, Serbia became 23rd member of CERN, full member of CERN. It is very important for us, I again say, because we are a small country. Maybe you know or you don't know that Serbia is one of the countries which established the CERN as ex-Yugoslavia, one of the 12 countries which found the CERN. And why is CERN important for us, that membership? Among researchers and industrial return and so on, CERN is a very good place for education. Exists teaching program, students program, master class. We organized master class in Serbia in the last 3 years, and so on. And many other possibilities for our teachers to learn how to learn their students. I give you maybe 2 more numbers in this short speech, but I want to give some overview our research system, our capacity in that manner. Also, I want to mention competition for best technological innovation existing in Serbia in the last 15 years. But in the first 10 years, we have only competition for researchers and students. In the last 2 years, we emphasize that competition on the level of secondary school teams, and we are very satisfied with number of teams which participate in that competition. Also, I want to mention Research Center Petnica. It's regionally very known research center. Our ministry support that center in the last few years with 9 million euros, and additionally through a regular yearly program we finance Petnica. Petnica deals with development of science, but also with scientific culture, scientific literacy, education, and culture overall. Important center for connection of education and research is Center for Promotion of Science. We also supported that institution. When you look all data, you can conclude that it's not possible to develop education without research, and it's not possible to separate research and education. It's not possible to exist good education with very high developed research system. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Hvala lijepa.
Hvala vam.
Okay, hey.